Well, usually when a red carpet is rolled out like this, it's for movie or TV stars. But tonight, the glamour is for the people who usually work behind the scenes producing some of the world's most popular video games. Leading the nominations with 10 is Everyone's Gone to the Rapture. It's an independent video game which is all about a post-apocalyptic world where everyone has disappeared and there's no shooting or running around. It's just looking through a very little quiet, sleepy village trying to find what happened to everyone that lives there. The master of ceremonies tonight is comedian and gamer Dara O Briain.
How are you?
What makes a good game for you?
Oh, listen, at this point, that's gone so diverse. I mean, you mentioned Everyone's Gone to the Rapture. That, in certain sense, isn't a game. It's more like an interactive story that you follow and you find the clues to reveal the meaning behind it. And it's not like one of these things where you'll see, you know, your 14-year-old disappear and play hours and hours of this thing, or whatever. These things exist for different markets and for different periods of time. You play it in an evening, so it's like watching a box set to a certain extent. And so the gaming industry is now suddenly just like diversified. So there's all these different types of products that you will still have the hardcore like shooters, the Call of Duty type thing, but there's also kind of quirkier, more interesting games like Life is Strange, which is released in a series of chapters, which is about a teenage girl discovering powers, but in the midst of a very kind of, you know, teenage girl crisis type storyline, like whatever. So it's quite interesting. What is the game has changed completely.
And there's things like Her Story, also very slow. What is it about slow gaming that seems to appeal this year?
Well, I think people are enjoying the way that gaming a story can unfurl at different speeds. I mean, it's a relatively new industry, so it's just learning how it can do what it does, how it can learn what it does, to make the experience more interesting. And Her Story is a very interesting one because it's a series of like found evidence tapes that you can only access by typing in keywords, and it'll find them like in this database, and then you slowly uncover a murder. So it is a case of like a lot of it's very, very kind of viewer driven, much more so than a narrative that we'd commonly associate with television. So it makes it a much more immersive experience.
And there's lots of games you can try here as well tonight. Have you been trying virtual reality, and do you think it's going to dominate next year?
I think it's going to be the huge thing next year. I think everyone's going to be talking about that. There's a couple of chances here just to put on either an Oculus Rift. I think Sony have one as well, and it is ludicrously immersive. I mean, the interesting thing is it only has to be a tiny fraction of time off to be incredibly nauseating, but they seem to have got that down. And then I think there's going to be a lot of situations where people are going to walk into a room and one of their loved ones is just going to be sitting, staring wildly around the room in a completely different universe, but strapped into a helmet. It's going to be everywhere in a year's time.
And you're returning to present the awards. Who have you got your eye on? Who are you tipping for a win?
Do you know what? It's one of these things that I've only played, I think I played the wrong games this year, and then I found myself then having to do a mad rush to catch up with what I think is going to be very good. There's a game called Metal Gear Solid 5, which is particularly impressive. It'd be interesting because sometimes it's getting a bit like the Oscars, where sometimes it goes very indie and sometimes it goes towards the big studio productions. This could be an indie year, so things like Rapture and Her Story and Life is Strange might get the nod. The quirkier, smaller games are on the same playing field as the big blockbuster releases.
And just quickly as well, the government's announced a new e-games, like an Olympic Games for video gamers. Are you excited about that?
Yeah, honestly, this is the point where it drifts away from me, like whatever, because that is for people who are quicker of finger and eye and thought than I am. But it is definitely, there's an award for it here for esports, and I think you're just going to see more of this.